My name is Alton Jones Jr. I'm a professional bass fisherman and I compete on the Major League Fishing Bass Pro Tour. I got involved in fishing at a very early age. My dad actually was a professional bass angler as well. He's been doing it for 31 years. So I was born into the sport. Basically, you could say I was bred for it. So early on, I was actually homeschooled. We lived in an RV, believe it or not, traveled across the country about 6 months out of the year, competing in tournaments, and I was spending probably about 100 days a year from the time I was around 8 or 9 years old on the water with him fishing. So I got the fast track learning experience into being a professional bass angler. We're extremely competitive, so nowadays we actually fish against each other. We fish the exact same tour, and so it's like fishing two tournaments in one. Not only do we have our own tournament where we're trying to beat 80 of the other top anglers in the world, but there's also a secondhand bragging rights as we fish against each other, because there's nothing more we like to do than beat each other. So our fishing competitions last about 8 or 9 days. We've got 80 anglers. Final day, it's 10 anglers competing for $100,000. The guy at the end of the event with the most weight and the most fish goes home with a trophy. Last year at my very first event down on the Kissimmee chain in Florida, I hooked a fish. It was on the semifinal round day. I was right on the cut line, and I went in as the fish got hung up in a tree. I went in to reach, and all I could see is the fish's tail. I reach in and I grab a hold of that fish's tail, and I latch onto this fish, and my boat begins to float backwards. Well, there's $100,000 on the line. I was not letting go of the fish, so I ended up going headfirst into the water with a camera in the boat. And a bit of an embarrassing story, but I caught the bass and I actually made the championship round, so all's well that ends well. Whew. It's the first time I've ever fallen in a tournament. The biggest tip I can give for any angler, whether you're just beginning and trying to catch your first fish or you're trying to make the pro ranks, is using the tools you have available. And the biggest tool in this day and age has to be my smartphone. Google Maps. I use it almost on a daily basis. You can use it to find ponds in wooded areas where you didn't know little fishing holes were, or you can actually roll back and look at old satellite imagery. Basically shows me a blueprint of the bottom of that lake. I can find house foundations and hidden, brush piles, things like that other anglers will not find, and gonna catch me a lot more fish. When I'm not on tour competing, my wife and I, we own a mobile bar called Cork and Clink. We have a 35-year-old Italian truck called a Piaggio Ape. So that keeps me busy during the off season. If I'm not doing that, you can usually find me on the lake fishing for fun.